Hi there, welcome to this Adobe Express live lesson. Good afternoon, my name is Meredith Jones and I'm going to be taking us through two activities today. So I hope you're sitting comfortably and that you've logged into Adobe Express and that you are ready to go. It is of course VE Day. Back in the year 1945 on the 8th of May was the end of the Second World War on the continent of Europe. It did continue for a little bit longer elsewhere in the world, but it was the end of fighting and the end of the war in Europe, and obviously a source of lots of celebration and relief here for us people living here in the UK, but all over the continent of Europe. And we're going to learn more about VE Day as we go through the session today, whilst we learn, of course, some multimedia skills using Adobe Express. So for today's session, you are going to need the activity page, and that is scrolling along at the bottom of the screen there, adobe.ly/VEday26. And that's not going anywhere. That's going to be there all through the session. So if you need it later on, or you lose the activity page and you want to get back to it, that turquoise little ribbon at the bottom of the screen is going to be there all through this session this afternoon. So don't worry, don't panic. You don't need to write it down anywhere. All right, so I'm going to jump over to Adobe Express and let's see what we're going to be doing. Oh, tell you what, let's have a look at the activity page first. That would make sense. So here we go. Here is today's activity page, and you can see that I've got Adobe Express open on one tab on my computer. I'm just using Chrome. Maybe you're using Chrome or Edge or another browser. But then on another tab, I clicked on the little plus there, and on this other tab, I opened up today's activity page. And to open it up, that's all I did was type in adobe.ly/VEday26. That's all I did. If you've got a device that has a camera that can scan QR codes, like an iPad, for example, you could just scan this QR code and that'll bring you to this page as well. So you've got two different ways of getting to the activity page. Now, teachers, remember that you can always pause the live lesson if you think that you need a little bit of extra time. Your class are really having fun, or like a few more minutes on something before moving ahead, then feel free to pause the live stream, continue playing as it suits you. There are also two activities, so there's a natural break halfway as well. So if you've got to go somewhere, then don't think that you have to be here for the entire lesson. Okay, let's scroll down and see what we're going to be doing first. Well, first of all, we are going to learn how to put together, how to design a newspaper front page. A newspaper front page. So the front pages from the newspapers back then on VE Day are iconic, and you can go and find them. And there's some at the bottom of the page, actually. If you scroll right to the bottom of the page, there's some examples there. Here's one example here. So we're going to try and recreate this kind of style, this vintage 1940s style newspaper. Okay, we're going to need to think of a name for our newspaper. We're going to put a nice headline in there. We're going to generate an image and try and make it look like a photo from the 1940s. And then we'll put some text in. We'll see what else we can fit in there. Okay, if you'd like to see some more examples, if you scroll right to the bottom, you do have this image gallery here where you can go through. There we go, and see the different front pages. Now, you will notice that some of them are totally black and white, and then some of them have maybe just got one color in there, but there's no examples here of kind of full color front pages. Okay, this one's an interesting one. It's all black and white apart from just the name of the newspaper itself. Also, how about those fonts? You know, you've got some really kind of bold, blocky fonts, but then you've also got, the actual name of the newspaper. That's quite a fussy font, isn't it? So just think about that as well. And then we've got some kind of straight-edged lines here. It's quite a simple layout, isn't it? It's quite minimalistic, actually. So we'll see what we can do to recreate this style, this feel. All right, okay, let's jump over to Adobe Express because I'm ready to get started. Here I am. Now, I think for this that the best option for me here is to just click on Create a Poster, the big pink card on the Adobe Express homepage. And this is just going to give me a blank canvas, and it's going to be pretty much in the correct kind of layout, isn't it? That's great. Okay, so let's think about the name of our newspaper first of all. No, let's not do that. Let's try and set the mood, actually. Okay, now, normally when we do newspapers, we will leave the background white because, you know, modern newspapers are printed on kind of white paper, and that's fine. But I actually want this to feel like a paper from the 1940s, so I want it to look a little bit more yellowed, it's a little bit older. So let's get an old paper texture for the back of our design. So to add a background, let's go to the left-hand side where it says Add Content. And then I'm going to go to Elements here. And then Backgrounds at the top. And in Backgrounds here, I can search for things like, let's try, old paper. Okay, that's a lot. 1,896. Let's maybe just put old paper texture in there. Narrow it down a little bit. Not much. Okay, so, you know, I don't think I want anything that's too, you know, maybe that's a bit too over the top. You know, that's too over the top. I certainly don't want anything like that. That's the kind of thing I wanted to avoid. I just want it to be a little bit yellowed, really. You know, like a newspaper that's been in somebody's attic, in a trunk, for 80 years, 70 years. Something like that, I think, is going to start me off well. So, nothing too strong, you know, nothing too dark. Just gives me that kind of old paper colour. Now, I think that's going to help me keep in the mood whilst I'm working on this. All right, okay. So next, let's get the newspaper name. So I'm going to go to T for text on the left-hand side. T for text. Add your text. Now you need to think of a name for your newspaper. So it could be a newspaper that you know of now, okay? Or you could invent one. It could be your village name or your town name. You could do something like that, okay? So I come from the Gwendroeth Valley. That's the area that I grew up in. So I could go for Gwendroeth. So then you could have something like the Daily Gwendroeth, or the Gwendroeth Times, or the Gwendroeth Post. Or if you can do a little bit of alliteration, then great. How about now then the Gwendroeth Gazette? I think that's how you spell it. I think that's correct. The Gwendroeth Gazette. So I need a "the" in there, I think. So Gazette is you don't hear it as much anymore, but it is an old name for you know, it's a name you'll find on some newspapers. The Gwendroeth Gazette. Right. Well, it's telling me that I've spelled Gwendroeth incorrectly with my dotted red line, but Gwendroeth, it's actually correct. It's fine. It just hasn't seen it before. But Gazette seems fine, so I think I've spelled that correctly. So yeah, think about things like that. The Daily something, or the something Post, or the something News would be, the Gwendroeth News would be good. It could be the Carmarthen Chronicle. Chronicle is a good one as well. It's something that gets used. So think of the words that you see in newspapers all of the time. Okay? And if you're not sure, then the classics are things like news. So Gwendroeth News, or Post, Gwendroeth Post, or Daily Gwendroeth, something like that would have worked well there. Okay, now I need to find this kind of font. This, and I tell you what, this isn't a bad start. This here, what is that? Let's click on it. So that's Adobe Caslon Pro. Okay, that isn't a bad start for the kind of slightly decorative font for the newspaper name. Now, I can also click here on the wavy equals arrow to see more fonts like this. Okay, and now I can see is the one here that just looks a little bit more printy, a little bit more printed. And do you know what? I think this one does. This Garamond does. Looks a little bit printed, doesn't it? I like that. There's lots of very good ones here, actually. Sabon. Yeah, I like the Garamond one. It's got some really interesting kind of shapes on the letters. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the one I've got. I'm quite happy with it. But, you know, use the font finder and use these little buttons. Go through, find a font that you really like. Find one that's got a bit of personality. I tell you what, this one's got personality. Look, I like these little kind of spiky bits on the N's and the R's. Delicato Pro. I do like you, Delicato Pro. Very cool. Let's switch. Yeah, I'm switching to Delicato Pro. Right, so have a think about your font. Spend a bit of time on it, but then what we want to do is, now, is it going to work if you stack it up like this? Or does it work better in a straight line? I think mine works better in a line. Like that, I think. Okay, now, to make it look a little bit more kind of hand-laid, so as if somebody's laid these letters out to print this newspaper, I'm maybe going to play around with the the letter spacing a little bit. So let's bring the letter spacing in. There we go, and it just kind of squashed it. And what you get is that some letters now, like the R and the A there, they'll just kind of bump into each other. These T's have bumped into each other. And I like that. I think it just gives it a bit of personality that it didn't have before. Right, that's a great start. Now, colour. Now, I like the fact that that paper we were looking at had just, it was all black and white, but just the paper name itself was the only thing in another colour. Because coloured ink cost a fortune back then. It still does, I suppose. So let's just change the name of the paper itself. Okay. So again, you could decide on a colour. You know, red is a classic for newspapers. But you could go for a colour that represents your area, you know. So maybe I'll go for a green. Now, none of these colours here are going to do it for us. So once you've chosen a colour, you're going to kind of need to go into custom. And now let's just darken that up a bit and maybe push it a little bit more towards the grey, so to the left a little bit, just to give it a bit more of a vintage kind of colour. There we go. I think that colour works very nicely there now. Wonderful. Okay, now let's box this text in. Okay, let's kind of box it in so that it's at the top here in the same color. So we're going to go to add content, elements. This time I'm going to go to the shapes. So here I am. Shapes are here next to backgrounds. And I just want a rectangle. Okay, here we go. So if I come down, just this rectangle is fine. Okay, now for the center of the rectangle, I want this exact green color that I've got here. Okay, so let's click on the color in the center of the rectangle. Here it says fill. Click there. Now you could use your pipette, your eyedropper tool to select that color, but actually a new feature in Express here is the in-use feature. Look, and that is the exact shade of green that I mixed for that piece of text. So let's just click on it. Brilliant. Right, that's perfect. Now I don't want this black box around it, so let's just bring the border thickness down to 0. If your border is at 0, then it can't have a color, so the color has disappeared down here. Great. Now, let's just use this to box in my newspaper name. Okay, so I'll start off by making kind of a big box like that. Great. Then I'll duplicate this. Great. There's my second one. Now with the second one, I'm just going to box up here. And now that I've done that, I could probably decide on how much smaller I want this bottom meant to be. There we go. Just something like that. That's nice. Okay. Let's duplicate the side box and pop it over here. Great. You see those pink lines are always helping me out. And now what do I want to do at the top? Well, let's duplicate this. Just want it like that. Do we want it kind of down on top of my letters? No, I don't think so. I think up there is good. There we go. And now that I've done that, maybe I can just move my text so that it's nice and in the middle of this box that I've made. Right, I think that's a good vintage looking newspaper name there. I'll think about the kind of decorating that up in a little bit, but I think that's looking good. Right, now let's think about our headline. Okay, so you can absolutely come up with your own headlines, but if you're looking for some examples, we've got this PDF here. So if I click on this open example text on PDF, it is just going to open another tab, and here it is, the PDF. So here we've got a double headline. We've got VE Day, and then Victory in Europe is here. Now this is something you'll see this sometimes. So I'm just going to copy both of those lines of text. VE Day, Victory in Europe is here. I'm going to copy that. And by using the PDF, you can see copying is really easy. We can just use this little window and click copy text. Otherwise, you need to use Control-C on your keyboard to make a copy. Okay, back to Express. And let's add in a text box. T for text. Add your text. And let's just paste it in. Okay, 3 dots and paste. There it is. VE Day, Victory in Europe is here. Now, this is definitely going to need to be black. Everything else on the page is going to need to be black. So let's go there. Black. Okay. And the font doesn't work for me now. This is a great font for our title, but not for my headline. So for the headline, it needs to be a really blocky font. And so the blocky fonts will never have serifs. So serifs are these little bits that kind of hang off the top and the bottom of letters. You see the S has got this is a serif. And up here here we go, we've got serifs all over the place. This little thing on the end is a serif. At the bottom, these little spikes either side of the foot are serifs. At the top of the D, this is a serif. So if you don't want those, if you want a plainer font, it means you want a sans serif. Sans is French for without serifs. So if we just search for the word sans, you are going to get loads of fonts without, anything that says sans will not have serifs, which means that it's going to be a plainer, blockier font. Okay. Now then, I'm looking for something that looks, quite vintage. This one looks good for me. This Noto Sans. Okay, so go through. And if you see that there's a font that you've never heard of before, that's always fun when we find a new font. I've never heard of Chocolate Classical Sans at all. Never heard of it. This one is good. Black Hand Sans. That's very good. So I think I'm going to go with that. No, it's too modern. Now that I see it there, it's too modern. So try again. Okay, it has to look nice and bold and blocky, but I don't want it to look too modern. Okay. Now remember as well, any of these with this little chevron, this little arrow on the side of them, means that there are more versions of this font that you can look at. Okay, if you drop it down, see we've got more versions of these fonts. So, got like this. So take a bit of time. See what you find. I'm going to go for this one. It is called Inria Sans. Yeah, I think that's great. Now, I want this to be on 2 lines. So let's just click before victory and press enter. There we go. But, you know, the VE day needs to be bigger. Victory in Europe is here. You know, this is not working. So let's use a dynamic text layout. So I'm going to click on text layouts, dynamic. Aha, cool. So now we've got VE day is really big. And victory in Europe is here. Is smaller. Great. So, I mean, VE days is too, I think it's too big. Okay, so let's highlight it and let's bring up the letter spacing there. Because by bringing up the letter spacing, of course, you're making your font size smaller. And this is something you used to see on old newspapers all of the time. Would be using letter spacing as a way to make sure that, you know, we're filling our page, but also that letters aren't too big. Yeah, that is a really cool mix of big fonts with wide letter spacing, and then the second line doesn't have such, it's just got normal letter spacing in there. Okay, VE Day, Victory in Europe is here. That's looking brilliant. Yeah, I'm really pleased with that. Now, next then, we need to think about the image itself. Okay, so let's create an image. So I want to get an image in here. Now, I really like that one that that example that we saw. It had this really thin black line around it. So I'm going to try something similar. So let's go to add content, and we're going to generate an image. So I'm going to go to generative AI, and I'm going to generate an image. So, you know, I need to fit in some text as well, and maybe a bottom strap line. So I don't think I think a square is going to take up too much of my space. Let's try a landscape. And this is great. Before you even start typing in your prompt, you can decide whether this is going to fit properly or not. Yeah, I think that's going to be perfect. Okay, if not, I would delete this and I would add another one in as maybe a widescreen if I wanted more room for text, or square if I wanted less room for text. But that's good. I think this what is it? Landscape. This landscape size is gonna fit perfectly in there. Okay. Well, let's type in what we want. Well, first of all, what is this? This is a 1940. Well, let's say 1945 black and white photograph. That's what this is. Okay. Oh, let's spell all of our words correctly. Right, black and white photograph. So, what happened on VE Day? Well, as we can see over on the example text, it's things like this. Britain celebrated with great joy yesterday as the war in Europe finally came to an end. Crowds gathered in towns and cities, waving flags, singing songs, and cheering in the wonderful news of peace. King George VI and Prime Minister Winston Churchill thanked the brave soldiers, sailors, pilots, nurses and workers who helped Britain through the long years of war. Church bells rang across the country, and many families held parties with music, dancing and special treats. Children laughed and played in the streets, waving Union Jacks and joining in the celebrations. After years of hardship, the nation came together to enjoy a happy day of hope, peace and thanksgiving. Britain rejoices as peace returns to Europe. Right, so let's go. What are we going to type in? What kind of photograph do you want? Do you want to try and recreate what it looked like in your town or your village on VE Day? So maybe I'll try and recreate my village rather than, you know, we've all seen the, well, maybe you haven't, but there's plenty of photos of London on VE Day. But it's difficult to imagine that for me because I'm not from London. So maybe I'll try and imagine lots of people with the church bells ringing in my local village, and people rejoicing that the war had come to an end. So a country, church in Wales. A small crowd of people are, what are they doing? Celebrating. Waving flags and handkerchiefs. Handkerchiefs. I think so. Waving flags and handkerchiefs. Small children running around. Some adults are wearing military uniform. There we go. Let's try that. What did I type in? 1945 black and white photograph. A country church in Wales. A small crowd of people are celebrating. Waving flags and handkerchiefs. Small children running around. Some adults are wearing military uniform. There we go. I think that'll do. Let's click generate. And let's see what Express gives me. Express is going to read my prompt and it's going to give me 4 different generated images based on what I just wrote. And then I can choose the best one, or I can generate more. Ooh, wow. Or I can refine my prompt. Well, we've got some great ones here. I think the first one looks like more of a kind of fun celebration. So I'm going to go with that one. Yeah, I'm going to go with that one. Now, that looks great. Now, maybe you're thinking, it does look good, but the colour of that paper on that photo now doesn't match the newspaper. And you're right. So let's see what we can do about that. So let's click on this X because we are done with generating the image. And to get this to blend in better with the background, we are going to go to opacity on the left-hand side. And we're going to use the multiply blend mode. Now then, what that's done is it's kept all the darkest parts of the image, but it's made all of the lighter parts transparent. So by making it transparent, it's obviously let through. We can see my background. And now it looks like that photo has actually been printed onto my page, which is very cool. Now, if you still think it's a bit strong, what you can do is go into something like the adjustments here, okay? And, you could do things like bring down the contrast or bring up the contrast. Whatever you now think is going to make this look a bit more vintage. Okay, I think both of those work. Because what they do is it kind of slightly wrecks it. So this is the brightness. Sorry, here's the contrast. There we go. Okay, so you can just play around with these sliders. And you'll notice, I think that's straight away now made a difference to that image. Makes it look as if it sits on my page better. Definitely. Okay, great. Now then, let's get that thin black box around this, because I really like that effect on that example that we've got on the activity page. So let's go again to add content elements, and let's just grab a rectangle, just a normal rectangle. Here we go. Now this time we don't need any color on the inside, so we'll go to the fill and we'll choose no fill. There we go. And then the border thickness, well, that needs to come down to be quite thin. Now you see the pink lines is showing me when I'm reaching the edge of the photograph, which is easy on the sides and the bottom, but actually quite difficult up at the top. There we go. Yeah, I like that little thin black frame. I think that looks very cool. I like it a lot. Okay, great. Well, what about our story itself then? So let's go and add some text. T for text, add your text. And, well, here's my story here. I just read it out earlier. So I'll just copy this, copy text, and paste it in. Okay, so that's really big. Let's change the font size over here on the left-hand side. Something that's more manageable to start off. Something like a 14. Okay, now then, let's see. We've got some work to do with this, haven't we? We need to break it up first of all. Because, finally. We need to break it up into paragraphs, first of all. That's going to help. There we go. Now, the font itself, I don't think is great. And it's got the letter spacing is still wide because it's remembered it from the last bit. So let's sort out our letter spacing. Aha, yes. So let's change that back to maybe 1. Oh, it just did it for that paragraph I'm on, which looks great, but I need to do it for everything. So just click away from your text box and click on it once. Now then, let's try that again. Letter spacing, I'm just going to change it to 1. There we go. Line spacing can also be 1. Right. Now we've got some more room to play around with. I'm not sure about the Inria sans for this. I don't think this is good. I think it looks a bit too modern. So I need to find a font that's going to work well for the kind of actual story. So it could be this, the one that I've got as my title, perhaps. Maybe. Now, it does look small, but let's just see what we can do to make this look bigger. Let's push this to the left, and then let's grab the corner, and then let's just play around with the width of our text box. There we go. I think that's better. Now, something you'll see on newspapers is that newspapers don't like having this kind of gaps over on the right-hand side of their pages. So newspapers usually won't align to the left, okay? But they won't align center either, because then you get really strange gaps either side. And they certainly won't align to the right, because then you get strange gaps on the left-hand side. But the final option here is to justify. And this is what newspapers usually do. They'll justify, which means that it'll kind of stretch the text across the page in order to fill it better. Okay? It'll allow the last line to have gaps, but anything except the last line, so you can see the first line of this paragraph, first and second lines of these paragraphs, it'll slightly give a bigger gap between words so that it fills across. Okay? It's just a, again, neat way that newspapers like everything to kind of fit into blocks. Okay, well, I've got my my newspaper headline. I've got my image. I've got the story in there. Probably need a strap line. You'll normally have strap lines, this kind of thing on the bottom that's really going to make people want to read this newspaper. So here we got Britain rejoices as peace returns to Europe. I'm going to copy that. Excuse me. That's the hay fever. All right. And for this, I think I'm going to just start a new text box. Add your text. Paste it in. There we go. Now this needs to fit down there on the bottom. So let's get it into one line. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Now, how about changing the font to... We're changing the font to this font up here. So, you can always use the fonts you've already got because it's going to say in use, you see? There it is there, Inria. Great. And now I can, let's just make that as big as possible. Lovely. Now, how about putting that in a bit of that green color we've got? That'd be nice. So let's add a shape. I'm going to go to Effects, scroll down, and I'm just going to put it in a box. Okay, click on Box. And I'd like the box to be in that green color. So you can see here, here's the shape color. And there is my green, it's in use. And maybe I'd like the text itself to be just see-through rather than black on green. I'd like the text itself to be see-through so that I can read it clearer. So let's use cut out text. That's cool. Now let's just make the shape size nice and big. There we go. Really big. So that I don't need to worry about kind of... Oh, I am seeing the edge of it there, see? Just want to make sure that it's... I think I need to make it even bigger. Back, make my shape size even bigger. There we go. Great, and that's a really nice effect that I can see the paper through the shape. It's very cool. Okay, well I'm nearly done, but what I don't have here is, you know, the dates. Now, obviously, newspapers on newspaper. It would be really interesting to see what the newspapers said on the 8th of May itself in 1945, because obviously the news of E-Day wasn't printed until the next day. So this newspaper wouldn't be until the 9th of May. Maybe the 8th of May had some really boring news at the beginning of it on the newspaper. So let's get that date in, okay? So what I'm going to do is I am going to just duplicate the name of my newspaper. You duplicate easily by using the duplicate button here. Okay. And then I'm going to change that text to black. And then let's move it down here where I can see what's going on. And then I'm going to, right, now I can't click on it because it's down in my layers. I didn't think of that. So over on the right hand side, let's just bring this all the way to the top of my layers. There we go. Now, that's all we need to do is change this text to say something like 8th of May 1945. Oh no, it's going to be the 9th. Oh gosh, I didn't even put the 8th in anyway. It's going to be the 9th that this was printed. Now, some newspapers will, you know, it's almost, there's no rule where you can put this, okay? You know, you could put it there. That's something that you'd see a lot of in newspapers. It would just be somewhere obvious in the photo. But also, you know, a nice kind of maybe more obvious place to put it would be up near the name of the newspaper itself. Okay, so you just have to think of where you think the date sits best on your design. Okay, now that's done and it looks amazing, but don't leave it there, okay? Before moving on, let's just add just a couple of finishing touches to make this look a little bit more vintage. Because right now, especially the greens and, you know, this black text, it's very crisp and clean. So how are we going to make that look a little bit more weathered and worn? Well, let's go to Add Content Elements, and we're going to go to Design Assets. And I'm going to search in here for, let's search for old paper. Now this time I'm not searching for the colored ones. I'm searching for these kind of, these black and white. See these that are kind of in black and white, and I'm looking for the ones that aren't particularly too strong. So I'll try this one. Okay, there it is. So it's popped it there on my page. Now normally they'll already be transparent, you see? If it's not, then I would get rid of the one you've got and try another one. So once you fill up your page with it, I've suddenly got a very vintage looking paper there. Now, if you think the effect is too strong, and I think it is a touch too strong, what we can do then is with this paper is just go to opacity and just bring that down. You take it all the way 0 and then bring it back a bit. Nice. That's looking great. But don't leave it there. Go back, find another one. Something like folded paper. Here we go. Lots of interesting ones here. So I'll go for one of these. There we go. So don't just use one of these design assets. Maybe use two and stack them on top of each other. And the combination of both of those effects. Bring the opacity down to nothing and bring it up a little bit. Has just taken our quite fresh, crisp looking front page. And now it looks really vintage and worn and aged. Okay, and you know, that didn't take me too long. It's just a couple of minutes to go and find those two design assets, pop them on top of your design, bring the opacity down so that they're not so obvious and strong. And it has made a huge difference to my finished piece of work. Well, we've learned loads in that activity. We've learned about blending modes. We've learned about letter spacing, line spacing, how to cut out the text from a shape. We've done lots of different things. And of course, we've learned how to write an AI prompt to generate an image in the style that we'd like. So lots of skills there that hopefully you can use on other projects. Now, maybe you've noticed that I haven't saved anything as we've been going along. Well, Adobe Express is always saving everything all the time, so there's no drama there. But it is always a good idea to name your project. So let's just click up here, and I'm going to name it VE Day Newspaper 2026. There we go, and that's saved. If you're going to print it out, I would download it as a PDF file. Or if you don't want to mess around with downloading and printing and that kind of stuff, you just want to share your work in a digital format, just click share. And the easiest way to do it, you've got lots of options here. You can go straight to Google Classroom, Teams, all that kind of stuff. But I think the easiest option is just to create a view-only link. That just creates a URL, a web address. Anyone who clicks on that URL can see your amazing design published to the internet. All right, okay, well, I'm ready to move along to our second activity. So let's jump back over to the activity page and let's see what we're doing next. So here we go. Here's activity 2, where we are going to try and reproduce a World War II style video news report. So video was really important in the Second World War, during the Second World War, but you know, nobody had a TV at home, but everybody went to the cinema. So films were huge. Going to the movies was a big thing during the Second World War. And then before watching a film, there'd be kind of this week's newsreel, which would tell you about what's been happening in the war usually, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to see how we can try and make a 1940s style newsreel using Adobe Express for VE Day. So we're going to do a lot of voicing over. We are going to talk about the 5 W's of VE Day. So who, what, where, when, why. We're going to try and speak as if we are 1940s TV presenters. So with clear, concise, and professional tone. And if you need some help with the kind of things we'll talk about, on the second page of that PDF, we have got a bit of the who, what, when, where, why here. So I might just kind of dip back and forth and use bits of that. I don't think I'm going to use it all. But I'm going to maybe come back and forth to steal some bits and bobs from there. All right, let's go to Express and let's start making our video reel. So to do that, I'm going to click on the Express logo. Now that is the colourful A up here in the top left-hand corner of your window. Give it a click. That's going to take us back to the Adobe Express homepage. Here it is. And to create a video, I'm going to scroll down and find the blue card that says create a video with this not impressed looking cheetah on it. So let's give it a click. And here we go. We are in there. Now, I really like seeing those kind of, on those old vintage videos, that kind of countdown graphic on the screen. So let's see if we can find that to begin with. So I'm going to go add content, media. Okay, and I'm going to search for video clips. So I'm going to go to videos, and I'll search in here for something like countdown. Okay, so 389 results for countdown, dear me. Okay, so this is the kind of thing I was talking about, but maybe I'd like an even older looking one if I can. Oh, that one's really messy looking. Look, I like that. The more kind of jumbled up and messy looking, for me, the better. I think it gives us that 1940s feel. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that one. I think, where was it? This one. Yeah, I think that's great. So I'm gonna click on that. And it's popped it on, and we can click on the play button here, and there we go. And you can see it's just a video, really cool, old-fashioned video of a countdown. Now, this would be telling everybody in the cinema, right, sit down, be quiet, because the newsreel is about to start. Okay, so maybe there'd be a little bit of speaking, a voiceover on this, something along the lines of, your attention, everybody, important news to follow, something like that. Okay, or here is some important news. So let's record a voiceover, making sure that everyone's listening to this amazing news that the war in Europe has come to an end. So to add a voiceover, that's all I'm going to do is go to add content and then media. Now, for voiceovers, you can either click on music or sound effects. Either of those two buttons gives you the record voiceover button here. Okay, and there's no difference between them. So I'm going to click on start recording, and I'm going to tell everybody that I need their attention because here is some important news. So I click start recording, then when I'm done, I'll click stop recording. Counts me down. Attention everybody, here is some important news. That was my best 1940s news presenter voice. Okay, cool. So that's my voice over there. So let's maybe move that to the end, because I don't want to cut off the end of this video because I need this to count down to 3, 2, 1, 0. I can't just play it from here. Attention everybody, here is some important news, and then stop at 6. You know? So I actually need to cut off the higher numbers. So I'll move my voiceover out of the way, and then I'm just going to trim this back. Now it does do something funny to my voiceover. It's pushed it out the way, but if you drag it, it comes back. Okay, so just get rid of that bit that I want, and then just move this back. There we go. Now then, let's watch it, and it's just starting from 5 now. Attention everybody, here is some important news. Brilliant. Okay, so it's time to announce that today, 8th of May, is VE Day. Okay, so let's do that. Now then, for that I want a new scene. Now I'm not going to click on the plus button here to add new scene, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find the video first. So I'm going to go into add content, media, and back to search videos, and this time instead of countdown I'll just search for old video. Okay, old video, and I just want an old video as a background. So I don't want any numbers on the screen because I'm going to fill my screen with text. So I just want a nice background, something like that maybe. Yeah. Okay, so I'll click on it. And this time it's asking me, right, what do you want me to do? Do you want to add this as a layer on this scene you've already been working on? Or do you want to add it as a scene? Do you want it to come next in your video? Yeah, I want this to come next in my video. And there it is. It's added it as the next scene in my timeline. You can see that I've got scene 1 is over here. And now scene 2 is over here. And I've got this really nice old messy video here. All right, so let's get some text on the screen. So T for text. Okay, and I'm going to put in here something like VE Day. And I'll put a colon. Victory in Europe. Like that. Okay, VE Day. Victory in Europe. Great. Well, let's use some tricks that we learned in the first activity. So let's go to text layouts and dynamic text. That's great. Now then, what about a font? We need a good old 1940s newsreel font. So maybe you think that something you've got from your newspaper is going to work. Okay? Or maybe not. Maybe you're thinking, no, I need something else for this. I need to find something different. Okay, so have a look. I like these slab serif. Oh, these look cool. I like this one. Alio. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. Alio. Oh, and it's got lots of versions as well. Alio. Has it got a nice thick version? Alio Black. Yeah, there we go. I'll go with that. VE Day. Victory in Europe. There we go. Now, you know, maybe a bit of an angle. 1940s posters and videos did like a little bit of an angle on their text. Yeah, something like that. Okay. And what else should we have on here? Maybe a map of Europe. So where are we going to get a map of Europe from? Let's go to add content, elements, design assets. And I'm going to search in here for Europe. Ah, cool. So let's just grab this map of Europe. Like that. Sort of layers out. Again, you wouldn't have any color here, okay? But what we can do is, you know, the gray here is a very modern color on this map of Europe. So I'm going to go into the effects button on the left-hand side, into the Photoshop filters. And in the Photoshop filters, you've got some really cool ones like the sepia filter, which is just, there we go. You see, it's just going to make it look really vintage. Very cool. Very cool indeed. Right, there we go. VE Day, Victory in Europe. Now, let's record my voiceover. Okay, and if you're not sure what you're going to say, let's jump back and maybe we'll just say something like, on the 8th of May, 1945, it was VE Day, the day World War II fighting in Europe ended. Something like that. Okay, so I'm ready to record. So add content media, and I'm going to go to music and record my voiceover. Counts me down. VE Day, the 8th of May, 1945, the day that World War II fighting in Europe finally came to an end. There we go. So that's my voiceover done. So now you see that we got all this extra stuff here, all this extra video after my voiceover. So I don't need any of that. So what I'm going to do is just go to the end of it, grab the end of the scene and just drag it back towards the end of my voiceover so that they are roughly the same size. Not exactly, just a little bit longer than the voiceover is absolutely perfect. Okay, let's watch my video from the beginning then and see how we're getting on.
Attention everybody, here is some important news. VE Day, the 8th of May 1945, the day that World War II fighting in Europe finally came to an end.
Right, that's great. It sounds great. The colours are great. The map colour is brilliant. Tell you what's not great is how static it all is. So let's click on my text. Now, filmmakers in World War II did use very basic animation effects, and it took them ages to do. Okay, we can do it with one click. It would take them hours to do what we're about to do with one click. But they would have maybe some text spinning onto the page in a video. Okay, and I said that would take them hours to do, frame by frame. We can just click on our text. Over on the left-hand side, we can click on animation. And then maybe we can go down and grab a spin animation, something like that. That's very kind of in keeping with what you would have seen then. That kind of effect, the typewriter effect, would definitely have been used. Maybe not that flicker as such. Maybe the fade, that effect works as well. You know, I don't think anything of the, you know, this kind of thing definitely would not work. These kind of bungees and drifts and stuff, they're too advanced, okay? They wouldn't have been able to do that back then, okay? But this kind of simple spin, I think so. So I'm going to pop that in. But then once it's arrived, I think it's a bit too still. So let's go and add a loop animation as well. And I think what I want is just something like this jitter. Yeah, just this kind of, you know, flickering cinema reel effect. I think, yeah, that's definitely going to give it a little bit of extra something. Let's watch it then.
Attention everybody, here is some important news. VE Day, the 8th of May 1945, the day that World War II fighting in Europe finally came to an end.
Okay, so what's our next fact going to be? Well, we could say here that celebrations took place across Britain and many countries in Europe. Celebration. Okay, well, let's see. Well, we're not going to find a video of that, but let's see what we can do. Let's go and find a video first of all. We're going to go add content media. Well, now, don't think we're going to find a video from 1945. We're going to find just any video of people celebrating. Then we're going to try and make it look older. Okay, that's how we're going to be our trick. So videos, search videos. And I'll just search here, crowd, happy. Let's see if we get a happy crowd. Okay, now clothes are important here. You know, if we can see clothes and it's really obvious that these are modern clothes, then that's no good. So, you know, almost that works, but the lights aren't. Saying that, those headlamps actually look as if they could be older. I could use that. You know, so you want a kind of close-up of just hands without massive disco light shows. Just people celebrate. Here we go. We just got people celebrating here in the streets. It's not too obvious what people are wearing. I think that's going to work for me. So I'll go with that. So you see, just pick something that's quite blurry or very close up on hands, or, you know, just something that obviously looks like celebration but without too much detail. Right, and again, we're going to add this as my next scene in the sequence. So in it goes. There it is. Now, how do I make this look older? Well, let's use the same trick as we used with the map. So on the video, we don't have the Photoshop filters on videos. We do have tones. So we can definitely go and make this, it wouldn't be in color, okay? So it would definitely need to be in grayscale, okay? So you can go in there, make it black and white. Or if you want that sepia tone, that basically needs to be black and yellow rather than black and white. So let's go to duotone and let's set these two shadows are black. And then the highlights are going to be yellow, but not yellow as such, more of a kind of creamy yellow. So let's go. There we go, about there. Okay, and now that is quite similar to a sepia. You can, oh, upper days, I've just undone it. Now, you can, what I was going to say, let's get that back. Let's get back. Now, what you could do is, your black, rather than it being black, is to be a very dark brown. Okay, so find orange. And then, so brown is over here, and then bring that down. So you're not totally in black, you're in a dark kind of brown. And now you kind of turn that video into a more of a sepia video of people celebrating, which is cool. But let's make it look old-fashioned again by adding in, you know what we've got here, these kind of scratches and lines. Okay. So let's just go into add content, media, videos, and let's search just for lines and grain. There we go. Knows what I'm talking about. Okay, lines and grain. Look at this one. Look at this one. This one looks perfect. I'm sure you'll find loads of them, but that one there looks perfect. All this kind of grainy stuff. So let's bring that in on top of my celebrating crowd. So as a layer on the canvas. So you're probably thinking, well, why have you done that? Now we can't see the crowd at all. But do you remember the blend mode we used with the newspaper? Okay, we're going to do the same thing. With this video clip, we're going to use the opacity. Now this time I want to keep the light bits because all the scratches and the lines are actually light. They're all white. And I want to make the darker parts, the black on this video, that's what I want to be transparent. So that's the screen mode. There it is. Now you can always test them out, but you'll quickly see that one of them works and one of them doesn't. Okay, so screen is the one I want. So let's watch this now, and all of a sudden it looks like a crowd of people celebrating in 1945. Perfect. And because it's blurry, nobody can see that that is a modern video. Right. What is my voiceover going to say? Well, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say big celebrations took place all across Britain and in many countries in Europe. Okay. Here I go then. So make sure that your playhead, that's this black line, is where you want your voiceover to start from. So I want it to start there. I'm going to go to add content, media, and scroll over to music or sound effects, doesn't matter where, and record a voiceover. Right, just check again what I want to say. Oh yeah, big celebrations took place. You can always switch over to this script whilst you're recording and then back if you want to. Okay, here we go. Start recording, counts me down. Big celebrations took place all across Britain and many countries in Europe. There we go. And again, now I can trim my scene back. And let's watch my video from the beginning.
Attention everybody, here is some important news. VE Day, the 8th of May 1945, the day that World War II fighting in Europe finally came to an end. Big celebrations took place all across Britain and many countries in Europe.
Okay, so I think it needs some text on this, doesn't it? I think, so let's just copy this VE Day victory in Europe. 3 dots, copy, back over here. Let's just paste, Control V on my keyboard, there it is. Okay. And I'm going to go something like, celebrating in the streets. There we go. Celebrating in the streets. Yeah. And I think the angle is fine. It's going to have that same animation at the beginning as well, which is cool. Let's try it.
Big celebrations took place all across Britain and many countries in Europe.
Brilliant. Now then, little tip. If I put the text underneath that lines layer, then I'll also get that cool grain effect over my text, which I think is mega cool.
Big celebrations took.
Yeah, I love that. Right, now, I'm aware that I'm starting to run out of time. Now, you could certainly go on, keep adding scenes, give more history about how the war came to an end, what people did next, and so on. But once you're done, so the final thing I would do is add background music. Okay? So once you're happy, right, all of my scenes are done, I'm pretty much ready to share this video. Then think about your background music. So let's go to add content, media, this time into music. Okay, so, I mean, I think that some kind of brass music would be good here. Okay, so, or you could search for military. Let's see, do we get anything if we search for military? Yeah, we got something. Let's try it. No. What about this? No. I don't think so. Definitely not. So not military. What about something like brass? Okay, so we got some brass stuff in here. This looks better. Oh, it's just that. Oh yeah, it's just 11 seconds long. Okay, so let's keep going. Bit of bagpipes. Not bad. Maybe. Well, I think that could work. That could really work, couldn't it? This award-winning ceremony could really work. So I'm going to try that. Click on it. Now, it does add your music in at 100% volume, so you're going to need to bring that down, okay? Probably around about 10% for you to hear your voice. And then a fade out at the end is always going to sound professional. So let's check out my video with the background music.
Attention everybody, here is some important news. VE Day, the 8th of May 1945, the day that World War II fighting in Europe finally came to an end. Big celebrations took place all across Britain and many countries in Europe.
There we go. Yeah, that has turned out great. And, you know, if I had more time, I would be having lots of fun, adding more scenes, finding photos, finding videos, then putting these lines and grain over them to make them look old. I love all that stuff. Loads of fun. If you want to download this video, you absolutely can. You can download it as an MP4 file here. Or, of course, you can click share. And as I showed you with the newspaper, you can just click view only link, and that'll publish your video to the internet. Anyone who clicks on the URL that you're given in this little window will see your finished video. So a really cool way of sharing it without having to download and handle files and so on. I haven't named it again, so let's name this. So this is VE Day News Reel. Ooh, 2026. And there we have it, folks. I really hope you've had fun on this. I've had loads of fun working on this afternoon. If you'd like to come along to more of our live lessons, just go to adobe.ly/live lessons. It's been up there all through this session. And you can see there all of the live lessons between now and the end of May. It takes us all the way up to the end of this month. And then in a week or two's time, we are going to add all of the live lessons to that list that take us up to the summer holidays. Say it quietly, but they are on the way. If you are posting anything to social media at all about your school taking part in VE Day, let's get that up big on the screen. There we go. Then please tag us in so that we can see your wonderful designs. You can tag Dom at Dom_trainer, me at MeredithJ, and then if you use the hashtag Adobe EduCreative, then that is the hashtag that all Adobe teachers from all over the world use. So you'll probably get some interested teachers from all over the world maybe commenting on your school's posts as well. I'd love to see your work. Anyway, we are bang on time. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on another one soon. But for now, goodbye.